Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Learning, Unlearning event happening on October 10th and 11th, 2020. Thank you so much for signing up. It really gives us a lot of pleasure to be bringing this event to you. Kumuda and I have spent many hours and nights talking about it, thinking about it in a way as how do we bring this together cohesively, meaningfully, purposefully, and in a way that we can actually interact. So as a prep, before you come to the event, we'd like you to watch these 3 videos that we're going to be sending you so that it helps you prepare mentally so you can come with the right state of mind to receive the topics and context that we're going to be talking about.
Such a pleasure to have you, Priyaka. Thank you so much for being generous with your time. I speak for hundreds and hundreds of dancers when I say that each of us have learned so much from just watching you in a performance. And today to have you in this conversation on unlearning, I think it's such a wonderful moment, and it's so valuable to have your thoughts on such a critical topic such as unlearning. So thank you so much for being so open about giving your time for this. If we can start with your first thoughts when you hear learning, unlearning. Through the conceptualization of this event, we were talking about how important a context of learning is important to unlearn, the ground or the bed of, learning that one needs to, even plant a thought of unlearning. And I think there's nobody better to answer that question in terms of the rich learning that you've had. When is somebody ready to unlearn? What is the kind of learning that one needs to do to even think of unlearning?
Thank you, Kumuda. Pleasure. And I think it's a wonderful and very valid discussion that you all have initiated. Really, congratulations to you. This is so necessary for all young artists, students, young teachers, all of us. Now, I feel that learning is a continuous process, right? And it never stops. Like I can tell you that even now, learning how to handle this new medium, and not just using Zoom or not just using this medium, but learning to use it well, to use it effectively, for me is a big learning, right? And it's in a way what we understand about doing things on stage is different from how we present things online, for example, right? Even starting from the duration of a so-called performance. And you just don't have the thrill or the high of a live audience. So everything it's absolutely continuous, this learning. I cannot stress enough on the importance of learning, and hopefully we all learn from teachers who are valuable to you, right? Teachers who lead you the right or the good, the path that makes it rich and meaningful for the student. So I think that's the most important, right, as an artist and as a student. And that I don't think there is a time where you stop learning and start unlearning. I don't think it's a mutually exclusive function or event, right? Learning is continuous, and perhaps unlearning is too, right? So, and what I understand by unlearning is about internalizing what you learn, and then whatever comes out from that deep well of learning that you have done, whatever comes out is something that you own up to, something that is yours, something that is an individual expression, is belongs to your vision, your thought process. So that unlearning is actually the what goes inside and comes out as an individual expression, I feel, is unlearning. Correct me if I'm wrong. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
so so naturally, I think both of them, you know, they and they're constantly evolving. So when I have reached a stage of maturity, when I mature with experience and with as a performer, as a teacher, as a student, then even what I learn is colored by my unlearning, isn't it? And therefore, you know, what I take in, what comes out, um, so everything keeps evolving. I feel that the there is never a point where either a student or a young teacher feels, now I have learned everything. There should never be a point where they feel, okay, now I know everything, now I'm in a position to unlearn, right? Because
Yeah.
the moment you stop learning, I think your growth is stunted, right? The biggest challenge I find today when I see young artists around me, either when I see performances on online or when I see you know what they put out as posts, is the what do I say? There is a, you know, the stress is more on individual expression and less on uh, content, correct? It's about you have not spent enough time learning for it to come out convincing or do something with conviction and show and or it comes out a strong personal voice. There has
Yeah.
not been enough time for that. So what happens is, you whatever time you have spent learning something, the it has not had the time to, you know, take shape, either as an idea, as a concept, or take place, shape visually in your head or in your body. So there is no time for it to rest, either in the mind or in the body. But already it's coming out as an individual expression. So what happens then? The expression to me then becomes something that is not fully formed, something that is only a shadow of what you want to say, and something that is more superficial and shallow and lacks depth. And the other thing about learning is you learn a language and a technique, right? And learning a language and a technique, you have to learn its grammar. You have to learn the nuances of a language. You have to allow the technique to rest on your body and grow naturally on your body and mind, right? But that time is not given. So what you see are more caricatures. And they lack depth. And sometimes I feel there is also a lack of understanding of the language of Bharatanatyam or dance itself. It's like anything goes. All I need to is to communicate, right? And if I have to communicate, I can do it in any way. You know, I can move my arms in something that resembles an adavu or a movement in Bharatanatyam. But what is more important is using anything and doing anything to make sure the audience understands what you're saying. but in a manner that almost dumbs down an audience, right? It's like an audience, and in our arts, there is a certain, um, a lot of value is placed for space.
Mm.
A lot of value is placed on, um, you know, giving the audience space to understand, space to experience, space to interpret it, giving them triggers to feel that identity with what is happening, right? It's not about showing and doing everything so easily that the audience doesn't even need time to get into something. They understand it like that because what you're doing does not need more thought,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Now, what happens, what I feel is dangerous about that is, today I find that an audience, just because they understand what you're doing, and in my opinion, it lacks depth and is very shallow, they feel, oh wow, this is fantastic, I understand everything about this. And then that becomes the yardstick for good dance.
Yeah.
Correct? And
Yeah.
that is a very dangerous trend.
Mm. Mm.
And we have to definitely not underestimate our audiences, and you cannot dumb them down, right? The
Yeah.
whole idea of our arts
Mm.
is to create an experience,
Yeah.
and the experience has to have depth and has
Yeah.
to leave an impression. It is not something that's just eye candy or for the moment you understand and then you forget,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I find some people do all these kind of expressions on online, right? Either that when they're showing Krishna or they're showing Yashoda, and truly I have no problems about individual expression, but as I said earlier, it is important to learn the language.
Mm.
And we all know there is something called appropriateness, and
Mm.
it has nothing to do with the history of dance.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with appropriation. It has nothing to do with class or caste. Auchityam is, I think, at every point society decides auchityam,
Mm.
isn't it? That decides on what is appropriate. And I think those things are a huge concern for me,
Yeah.
that we are encouraging mediocrity. Not just earlier it was mediocrity, we're encouraging shallowness. We are
Mm.
encouraging that, learning is about learning today and regurgitating it tomorrow, but doing it in a way that is my way, right?
Mm.
So
Mm.
if it's my way, anything goes. After all, it is my way. So what do you may have a problem with it, but this is my way, correct?
Yeah.
So individuality does not mean that you can get away with doing anything.
Yeah.
Individuality is shaped by the depth of your learning. Only
Yeah.
then that individuality, will acquire a beauty and a sheen. Otherwise, uh, it just becomes a voice in my mind that sometimes is even dangerous, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel that unlearning is has to happen after a deep, um, uh, committed learning. Okay, and you ask me, when does it happen? Is there a time frame? I think each of us, have our own time clocks as far
Mm.
as art is concerned. So I don't think there is a general,
Yeah.
free size for, I mean, time for all. But the one thing is, uh, a good point of reference would be your teacher,
Mm.
right? And I think the right teacher will guide you as to when you can, Like for instance, it's important for me that both Shweta and Apurva have to start thinking of things on their own, right?
Mm. Mm.
Of course, I'm always there to guide and always there to give opinions, but also, it has to be, what do you say? The effort has to come from them, for the, because I feel now they're at a point ready for that kind of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's for me also, when if you asked me 5 years back, 6 years back, they were not ready. I felt, right? So it takes time.
Mm.
It takes time. So I feel that a teacher also is a good judge as to when you are ready. Now, as far as my teachers were concerned, right? Like my Vadyar, unfortunately, he passed away too soon for me. And in a way, I was thrown into the deep end because he was no longer there. As long as he was there, he would conduct the recital, he would fix the musicians, he would decide on the compositions, the choreography was his, he would sing, he would handle everything, right? So all you had to do is go on stage and do your best if you could. So suddenly, when that was not there anymore, it was literally by being suddenly thrown into the deep end and you had to manage. So with my Vadyar, it was out of necessity. But with Kalanidhi Mami, I don't think at any point she ever said, now you have learnt enough, now you do this on your own, right? I think Mami just allowed things to naturally, organically grow on you, right? And I remember that at 19, she, I started teaching at her school.
Mm.
Now, to me, that was very defining, right? What do I know at 19? But I think that was one of the most defining moments for me because when I taught, I learned,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it was also whatever the hands that we taught were also came out of my imagination, correct? Because the whole system of learning is not based on something that is structured or pre-decided. It is spontaneous,
Yeah.
right? The system
Yeah.
of teaching Abhinaya. So for me, looking at a composition, teaching the composition, but on the spot, making those hands, imagine, using your imagination was a huge learning and unlearning process, right? So for me, that was very defining. Then there was another time, I remember, again in my early 20s, maybe when I was 22 or 23, I was performing a composition, Ninnu Juda Galigena, right? And that Kshetriya Padam, I remember that I was doing exactly what I was taught. Now, Mami never encouraged or never insisted that you should do exactly what I teach you. Hers was always, it always gave, scope for the dancer to, use her imagination, individual expression, etc. But I think that in the early years for me, it was more about, taking in exactly what I learned, what I saw. So I remember doing Ninajuda Galigena. I remember doing it in the performance, and I felt there was till then I had not felt that before. I felt I was doing it exactly the way Mami would, right? And at that moment, I felt that that was wrong. And that was not something Mami herself advocated. Because I am not Kalanidhi Mami,
Yeah.
right? And I cannot, and it's not about imitation, and it's not about doing something exactly the way you were taught, because that's not one, the way we learned from Mami. And then what happened was, it took me a long time after that to really feel that conviction to do padams and javalis on stage.
Mm. Mm.
Because I felt long time, I meant that I had to work it out when I started presenting, that it had to be something that was convincing on me.
Mm.
And
Mm.
also was something that came spontaneously in that way,
Mm.
rather than that something that came from a memory.
Mm. Mm.
So what I'm trying to say is that memory
Mm.
was internalized earlier. It was
Yeah.
only something that kept hanging there that I kept drawing from.
Mm.
But and what I understood was I have to internalize the teaching,
Yeah.
the the character. What she taught is what I get my strength and imagination from, even till
Mm.
today.
Mm.
But it is not about copying.
Yeah.
What she taught was a way to think.
Yeah.
What she
Yeah.
taught was a way to train your mind. And it is not about keeping your hand in a particular way or keeping your head in a particular way.
Yeah.
It's about learning to use your imagination. And till today, always, I think, forever, that is my source, my well from which I draw from. But to understand that it's different from copying took me some time. And
Yeah.
that is what I
Yeah.
call unlearning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. So it's really wonderful how you clarified this idea of individual thinking. So, this idea of anything goes against having that deep set knowledge base and then being spontaneous out of all the learnings that you have. I think that very much summarizes this whole event, the intent of this event, which is, and that's why we didn't call it unlearning, we called it learning unlearning, because even that is a learning. It, like you said, it never really stops. So just kind of putting together what you said, Akka, and extending that thought, you were talking about the fact that learning is continuous. It never really comes to an end. And as an artist who's kind of really stretched to the last point of an arc that, an artist can, stretch, how was your learning and unlearning in different stages? As, for example, when you started, you were saying that my Vadyar decided everything, and, I just had to try and do my best. From that stage of just performing and then slowly, evolving a sense of identity. Just as a dancer, the way I look at you, your sense of subtlety and sophistication in the expressions in the abhinaya that you do, is for me an unlearning perhaps that you embody, where you decide that this much is enough, or beyond this it might be too much. So there is a very unconscious point that you make by doing this much or not doing that much. So and what I'm trying to lead you to is outcomes of unlearning. How does outcome translate? How does unlearning translate through the different stages that it takes place
okay. I'm not sure if I understand what outcome is, but let me come to that a little later.
in?
So, what you said about unconscious
Mm,
line, right? I think it is what it is. It's exactly that. I don't think, personally, if you ask me, I don't set any line or decide that this is how much I'm doing. I think whatever sensibility that I have acquired over time is because of what has gone in. And I
mm,
completely attribute it to both my teachers.
mm,
Their sense of beauty, their sense of subtlety, their sense of aesthetics has completely influenced me. My
mm,
Vadyar's, that sense of beauty that he had through his music. He
mm,
always also, he was a person for whom, uh, the there are no straight lines where he was concerned.
mm,
Everything has to have a loop,
Mm.
and in that loop lies the beauty, and you have to draw the audience in rather than awe them, stun them into silence with your either your speed or your sound or fury or whatever. He hated it if we stamped too hard or we were too aggressive, right?
Yeah.
So I think I am deeply influenced by that. And Kalanidhi Mami, just the sheer expanse and immensity of the kind of imaginative world of stories and emotions that she has opened. And Kalanidhi Mami especially has taught us that there are no barriers really.
Mm.
Right? There is no limit to your imagination. And but one thing that uh, she maybe unconsciously, I don't know, I don't remember her very clearly articulating every time. See, there has to be, you shouldn't cross a line. Whatever you show, the audience should not feel uh, either disgusted or embarrassed by it.
Mm.
Now, this is again a very sticky topic as far as I'm concerned, because all of us have our individual lines of aesthetics and lines beyond which we should not cross. And mine need not be the same as yours, right? So, what is this common line that I should not cross? I've often thought about it because I know that Kalanidhi Mami Shringaram sometimes is thought too explicit by some people, right?
Mm.
Whereas in my understanding, the words are explicit,
Mm.
right? But the way she treats it is with subtlety,
Mm. Mm.
correct? Now, completely ignoring the words or what the words are going to say and treating it without letting the Shringaram seep through, to me is also not being true to the poet,
Yeah. Yeah.
correct? So
Yeah.
I think these are all questions that play on your mind, especially when you start handling compositions.
Mm.
And
Mm.
when you set the pieces, when you choreograph the pieces, these are all things that set you thinking. I know that at one point I used to love, I still do, but I used to perform it a lot, Puriyadunandana,
Mhm.
the last Ashtapadi in the Gita Govindam. And it is the one that has the totally saturated with Shringaram. And it is Radha as a Swadhina Patika Naika. Very,
Mm.
very beautiful and so
Yeah.
sensual. I used to love performing it. And I remember one or two comments about it saying, why do I show everything? But in my mind, I never showed everything, right?
Mm.
I was only suggesting and letting the words take over. Now, the poet has said pretty much everything.
Yeah.
So, which means something triggers the imagination of the audience and they're able to see things which you have not portrayed.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
I may stop with this, but they are seeing more than that because of what you have suggested. And maybe something about the way you have suggested it takes them beyond that mere gesture,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So these were things that really played on my mind as to, what is this line that I shouldn't cross? Or
Mm.
what, because I don't want to do anything that either makes an audience embarrassed or, make them turn away with distaste. Because its art is about presenting something beautifully on stage, whatever that is, correct?
Mm. Mm.
So these are things that I really had to, let's say, unlearn to
Mm.
understand how I can express something
Mm.
through the language that I have learned, right?
Mm.
So that in my mind, I am true to the poet, I
Mm.
am true to the words. At the same time, I can draw an audience in and we make them part of the experience, irrespective of where they come from and they can feel the beauty and power of what is being presented without feeling that we have crossed any line. So these have all been very important points of learning and unlearning for me.
Yeah.
Right? How
Yeah.
to present
So what I'm gathering from whatever you're saying, Akka, is at different stages as an artist itself, there were different aspects of dance that you were learning and unlearning, which initially was to do with the movement itself. And then later it was about choice making. And then at a certain point, it was how about how you treat music. So are you saying that as an artist, the aspects of dance, you know, with which you're learning and unlearning circuit happened, slowly moved into like broader and broader aspects of dance? And am I getting that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because see, dance is about music, dance is about movement, is about expression, dance is about presenting a composition. There is a total macro picture that you're giving, and then the micro work that you do, right? So it's about everything, and in everything, the artist has to shine through. I mean, the artistry has to shine through, isn't it? I don't mean that the artist has to be seen, because I always believe that it's not about the artist's personality, but what the poem, whether it's a pure dance piece or a expressional piece, the intent of the poet and the poem has to come through. But then it is about how you visualize it, isn't it? So that, I think, at every point there was this, you had to draw from your experiences. At the same time, you're not copying, or you're not doing exactly what you were taught, but those, whatever you have drawn from your experiences, are then, they come out as your individual expression, which is what I think unlearning is about, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So I think there is an entire metamorphosis itself in that whole process. This is amazing, Akka. I think so many of those nuanced insights that you talk about is something that can only come from the experience of, you know, having walked the entire path as an artist. I think we can. It takes a lot of time to take this in. Like you said, I think the time that is needed to take this in. Any concluding words that you would like to say to young dancers in terms of making these choices as they grow as an artist?
Okay. There is no such thing as instant expertise, right? So even like we are all dealing with Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, they're all fantastic tools. I mean, I really think it's absolutely magical, and there's so much. I'm loving these tools that you have, these platforms, but there is no something as instant learning, right? So give it time and give it the respect that it needs. And it does not mean that you are incapable, or there is something lacking in you if today you learn something and tomorrow you're not able to perform it, but rather you have the strength to allow it to grow and take root in you. Give it that time, right? Anything takes time. You don't grow up in a second. You grow up over a period of time, and you have to allow art to do that too. And really don't encourage anything that's shallow. I think as artists, we have to protect, each other, and also we have to protect the art. It is our, I think it's something that each of us, it's a natural duty. So I don't think, don't encourage shallowness either in yourself or around you, because I think honesty and also we use words like awesome and brilliance and genius so easily. Earn it. Okay, I know all this sounds like I come from the 60s. But I think that earning something is so much more valuable, and the fruit of that is something that you can taste and with relish, rather than instant success, which is not really success, but which can also dissipate as fast as quickly, isn't it? When you have really worked on something and it is received well, and it is not only about the reception but also about your feeling, right? That wholesome feeling that you get when it comes out as a real labor of love, right? And but on the other hand, if you've not spent enough time on it, but then whatever you do is treated as awesome and oh, you're a genius and it was brilliant, it makes you feel good, no doubt. But then you also, how much of feeling do you really have, of the experience, correct?
Yeah, that's
Say about
that's
all that's
definitely.
humanizing, but
Yeah, that's definitely something to take back. Thank you so much, Priyaka. It's
pleasure.
such a pleasure to hear even some of the simplest words when it comes from someone with the kind of experience in artistry that you bring. Such a pleasure to have you, and we hope we can have you in the event as well to inspire our participants to make their day. Thank you so much.
I hope I have not offended any young person. It's not about being either dismissive of the work that is being done or being derogatory or looking down, but it is definitely of concern that you do need to give it time, and that is something nobody seems to have today.
Yeah.